Now, we left off yesterday, we talked about immigration in this country. We're now going to talk about urbanization and what happened to the cities. Okay? Now, the first thing is an example, and it's been around for a long time. It's called urban sprawl. It basically means where you take a small inner city and it begins to look like this. It begins to expand out, and everyone starts to, it blurs the line of where the city ends and where the country begins, or vice versa. So urban sprawl is the process of making a city bigger due to population, and that's what we have going on here, okay? Now, we didn't have these nice little houses that you have here in the suburbs. This is a suburb, by the way. In the urban cities, we didn't have a lot of space, but we did have steel. So we invented these things. These are called tenements. And so a tenement is a mass housing where you get a vast number of people. Now, the problems here are infinite. Number one, there's no indoor plumbing. You had a chamber pot, you dumped out into the street, and so you come in contact with that. You have dysentery, you have cholera, you have all these horrible diseases, right? And so there is that tenement. Now, the second thing is crime, and just vast number of crime because you live in these horrible conditions. This is not what you've been taught about, right? So tenement housing is a mass housing product, or mass housing product, I guess would be a good way of saying it. Where you're going to have put a lot of immigrants, and so they lived in these things, okay? Now, inside of a tenement, this is what you're looking at. And you're like, how on earth is this good? It's better than dying, which is what would have happened if they stayed, okay? Now, the man behind the tenements and other stuff, such as the Flatiron building you have here, is Louis Sullivan, all right? So Louis Sullivan, basically the idea was to create steel so that you could make things bigger, and so there he is. Now, going along with Louis Sullivan is Elisha Otis. Now, if you notice, Elisha is a male, right? And Elisha Otis had this thing. What is this? It's an elevator, all right? So to accomplish these things of making cities bigger and faster, we have Louis Sullivan with his skyscrapers, correct? And then we also have Elisha Otis making our elevators. However, the tenement housing had neither of these. It was just crudely constructed houses, and so there you go. Now, the immigrants came to this country. They came dreaming of better jobs, and things weren't marching up, and so people took advantage of these immigrants and decided to use it. Now, what's the most powerful thing an immigrant can give you if they don't have money? How about a vote? People come around all the time, right? We are having or about to have, however you want to look at it, a school superintendent. And so you see all these different signs from Mr. Ferguson, Mr. Fussleton, Miss Robinson, or Mr. Darnell. And so they want your vote because that's ultimately going to decide things. Now, what these people are about to do here, and at this time, is completely illegal, and I'm in no way saying that our superintendents did this, but at this time, it worked for them. And so what is this called where you use vote for power? It is called a political machine. Okay? And so you have here a lot of things, right? Where did they meet? They met at the saloon, at the bar, where they went to drink, right? And as you notice, this guy has a gun, right? And so they're going into the saloon, they're going to drink to get away. The devil's there, meaning bad stuff, correct? And as they're coming out and giving their vote to the man who's turning the political machine, they have jobs. Look at this: alderman, senator, mayor. And who's pulling the strings? The guy behind these places, okay? So the political machine is where you keep one man or a group of men in power by giving them your vote, okay? Now, the biggest political machine in New York City was Tammany Hall. This is the old Tammany Hall. It's now Union Square Theater in New York City. So Tammany Hall is the most powerful political machine of New York City. And there is one man behind this, okay? Here's the Tammany ring, as you can see, right? And so where the money go, who's it pointing to? Now, who's the biggest man on this picture here? It's this man, right? And so this man is the man in control. He pops up in numerous political cartoons like this with no face. The brains of the operation is money, And so who is this man in control? His name is Marcy, that's intimidating, Boss Tweed. And so Boss Tweed is the man controlling Tammany Hall. He's the one that would go and offer up tons of things. If you've seen the Daredevil cartoons, or you watched the one on TV, or you've seen the movie The Villain, the Kingpin, ultimized by Ving Rhames, the guy on Law & Order Criminal Unit, Fisk, as he's called, is supposed to be Marcy Boss Tweed. He's supposed to control New York City in a modern political machine. Now the problem is, how does he go to jail? And so here we have this other political cartoon, correct? Can the law reach him? The dwarf and the giant thief. And so the idea here, of course, is that the police are too small. The prison is too small to contain this man. He has too much power. He's too big to be caught. And so there it is with that. Now the person who came up with this one and other political cartoons I've shown you is our first muckraker. We won't talk about till progressivism, but going forward, his name is Thomas Nast. I call these nasties because he was getting nasty with the society, right? And so that is the idea of that. Now, how bad were political machines? How much could they control? How about if they could fix a World Series? In 1919, and I'm jumping all over the place here, there were people, and here they are, right, of the Chicago White Sox who should have won. And so they're called the 1919 Black Sox. They basically threw the game because somebody bet against them and they were going to take a cut. Now, it was found out about them, and they will never go and enter baseball. And one of the guy here we have, Shoeless Joe Jackson, who was a great player. This is the same one that they bring up in The Great Gatsby, where they are talking to Meyer Wolfshire and says this is the man who fixed the 1919 World Series. But this is just an example of how political corruption can happen. Okay? Now, some things I want you to look at here going into this objective one. What is the problem that accompany big cities and tenement housing if they're all packed in there, right? And the second thing, explain how a political machine functions and why it's appealing to an immigrant. Why on earth would they want to do this? And we'll get into the other things as we go through this.